Karen Mullins thought she could bend the law to her will, but Officer Dana Brooks had no intention of letting a single traffic stop turn into chaos. And what followed would shake a quiet town to its core. It was a bright Saturday morning in the quiet town of Maple Grove, the kind of day where everything seemed calm and ordinary. Sunlight streamed through the trees lining the streets, casting soft shadows across the sidewalks. Birds chirped lazily, and the faint smell of fresh coffee drifted from the corner cafes. Most people were just starting their weekend routines, some walking dogs, others loading groceries into their cars. In the midst of this serene setting, Officer Dana Brooks began her shift at the Maple Grove Police Department. She had been on the force for over 7 years, known for her calm demeanor and meticulous attention to detail. Saturdays were usually quiet. Maybe a few traffic tickets, a minor fender bender or a neighbor dispute, but nothing out of the ordinary. Dana's morning started at the intersection near Main and 12th Street, a spot notorious for drivers ignoring the stop sign. From her patrol car, she watched as a few vehicles rolled through the intersection, most slowing down only slightly. Her eyes followed a silver sedan that came next, then a delivery van that beeped impatiently as it waited behind. Everything was routine. She made a note of the time and planned to issue a gentle reminder to the next few drivers. The town had grown complacent, trusting that everyone respected the rules, and Dana often found herself feeling more like a reminder than an enforcer. Then, at precisely 8:47 a.m., a white SUV came into view. Its approach was too fast for the lightly trafficked intersection. The vehicle didn't even slow down before rolling through the stop sign. Dana's training kicked in immediately. She turned on her lights and pulled the SUV over near the strip mall a few blocks away, where traffic and pedestrians were minimal. She watched as the vehicle came to a halt, the tires crunching against the gravel of the parking lot. The driver was a woman in her late 40s, her hair perfectly styled, sunglasses perched confidently on her face. She had an air of entitlement, an unmistakable sense that rules simply didn't apply to her. Dana recognized her from prior minor complaints in the neighborhood. A realtor named Karen Mullins, known for her insistence that she was always right and everyone else was wrong. Even from the patrol car, Dana could sense that this stop would be different. The calm Saturday morning had shifted slightly, like the first ripple in a pond that would soon become a storm. As Dana approached the SUV, she noticed Karen's posture, rigid, defensive, yet calculating. Her eyes scanned the parking lot as if evaluating an audience. Dana had done countless traffic stops in her career, but there was a tension in this moment that hinted at more than just a citation for running a stop sign. Karen's presence was commanding in a peculiar way. She seemed to think that the ordinary flow of law enforcement should bend to her personal will. To any casual observer, this would have looked like an ordinary stop, but Dana could already sense the subtle challenge behind Karen's composure. The other drivers in the parking lot began to glance curiously, slowing their own cars, some even pulling out their phones to record. Dana knew that in small towns like Maple Grove, a single incident could escalate quickly, especially when entitlement and ego were involved. She took a deep breath, steadying herself, preparing to handle what should have been a routine stop. But she had no idea just how far this encounter would escalate, nor the chain of events it would set in motion, changing the quiet rhythm of the town forever. Officer Brooks approached the white SUV with careful steps, her eyes fixed on the driver, prepared for a conversation that was supposed to be simple and routine. She could see the reflection of the morning sun on Karen Mullins' oversized sunglasses, and there was an unmistakable tension in the air. Karen sat rigidly, one hand gripping the steering wheel, the other clutching her smartphone. Dana had seen drivers nervous, irritable, even scared during traffic stops, but there was something different about Karen. It was not fear or guilt in her eyes. It was calculation, a confidence that the rules were negotiable when she decided they were. Dana lifted her notepad, ready to jot down the details, and began speaking firmly but politely, stating the reason for the stop. Karen didn't immediately respond. Instead, she held up her phone, positioning it to record the interaction. Dana could feel the shift in control. Karen's attention wasn't on the citation, but on documenting every second for an audience she imagined was watching. From the moment she rolled through the stop sign, Karen had been orchestrating the scene in her mind, framing herself as the victim and everyone else as aggressors. Minutes passed, though it felt longer to Dana. Karen's hand never left her phone, tapping, swiping, muttering to herself as though she were narrating the events live. Other cars slowed to a stop nearby, curious onlookers emerging from their own errands. People instinctively recorded, capturing the tension between the officer and the woman in the SUV. It was no longer just a traffic stop. It was quickly turning into a spectacle, a performance designed to provoke attention and perhaps sympathy. Dana carefully handed Karen the citation, trying to maintain professional composure. The situation escalated faster than expected. Karen tore the ticket in half, letting pieces flutter to the ground, ignoring Dana's calm instructions. She threw the fragments out of the window, watching as the wind carried them across the pavement. Dana could sense the frustration building, not in herself, but in the situation itself, a scenario slipping from routine procedure into something unpredictable. Karen's sense of entitlement seemed absolute. In her mind, she was untouchable, above the law, and in full control of the narrative. By the time Karen finally exited the SUV, she began moving around the parking lot with her phone, speaking into it as if documenting an elaborate injustice. Each action was calculated for impact. How she looked, how the camera captured her movements, how the surrounding witnesses might perceive the scene. Dana stayed back, noting every detail, aware that this was no longer a standard infraction. This behavior suggested something deeper, a pattern of manipulation that could escalate beyond public spectacle. Later that day, the department received the first of many troubling reports linked to Karen. Calls came in under Officer Brooks' name, claiming crimes that never occurred. Some were minor, like alleged thefts, while others were far more serious and alarming. It became clear that her sense of power during the incident had propelled her into a dangerous escalation, a web of deceit and harassment that would soon capture the attention of the entire town. The routine stop that morning had quietly transformed into the opening chapter of a far more serious conflict, one that would challenge the limits of patience, authority, and the boundaries of the law. Detectives assigned to the case quickly realized that Karen Mullins' actions extended far beyond the initial traffic stop. Her social media profiles revealed a pattern of obsession and hostility. Pages filled with angry posts, videos of herself narrating perceived injustices, and live streams criticizing local authorities suggested that she viewed the world as a stage where she alone decided the rules. She had amassed hundreds of followers who commented on her videos, some encouraging her behavior, others condemning it. The posts often exaggerated minor incidents, turning ordinary disagreements into dramatic confrontations, painting herself as a target of widespread corruption and misconduct. It was clear that the traffic stop had triggered something much deeper, a deliberate campaign against Officer Brooks and the Maple Grove Police Department. Investigators discovered multiple instances of fake reports filed under Dana Brooks' name, ranging from stolen property to violent incidents. Each claim was meticulously crafted, including falsified dates, fabricated witnesses, and carefully selected photos or videos from unrelated events. Detectives noted the precision in Karen's actions, recognizing that she had spent considerable time planning these attacks. She wasn't acting impulsively. She was methodical, determined to tarnish the reputation of the officer who had dared to stop her. Karen's phone became a critical piece of evidence. Once obtained through a warrant, it revealed a disturbing level of organization. She had saved dozens of messages, screenshots, and drafts of false reports, all labeled and categorized as if she were keeping records for an elaborate operation. One folder contained messages she had sent to the local newspaper under anonymous accounts, claiming to have inside information about Dana Brooks' alleged misconduct. Each message was carefully worded, designed to sound credible and urgent, with the intent of drawing public attention and discrediting the officer. Another folder contained notes about neighbors, co-workers, and local officials, suggesting that her fixation was not limited to law enforcement alone, but extended to anyone she perceived as challenging her authority or ignoring her demands. It became apparent that Karen's sense of entitlement was the driving force behind her behavior. Every interaction, every false report, and every online post reinforced her belief that she was justified, that the law and social norms were subordinate to her will. She had meticulously constructed a narrative in which she was always the victim, always in the right, and always justified in taking extreme measures to assert her perceived authority. Detectives and officers realized that the situation required careful planning. Karen's behavior was escalating, and there was potential for serious consequences if left unchecked. She had already demonstrated a willingness to manipulate public perception, intimidate officials, and fabricate crimes, and her pattern suggested that future actions could become more dangerous. The investigation revealed a woman fully committed to her own version of justice, operating within a world of her own making, where rules existed only to be bent or ignored. By the end of the week, the department had pieced together a detailed profile. Karen Mullins was no longer just a difficult resident or a viral Karen incident. She had become a calculated, manipulative figure capable of orchestrating harassment on a larger scale. The challenge was clear: stopping her without creating a public spectacle, while preventing further escalation, required precision, patience, and a strategy that could outmaneuver her growing obsession with power and control. The small town of Maple Grove had been drawn into a game she had designed, and the consequences of her actions were only beginning to unfold. After weeks of careful observation and evidence gathering, the Maple Grove Police Department decided it was time to take action. They knew that Karen Mullins was highly manipulative and unpredictable, capable of turning any situation to her advantage if she sensed weakness. Officers devised a plan that required precision, patience, and restraint, knowing that any misstep could escalate the situation further. The goal was to lure her into a controlled scenario where her behavior could be observed and documented without putting anyone at risk. The department created a carefully staged leak online, claiming that Officer Brooks had been temporarily suspended for misconduct. The story was minor but believable, just enough to provoke a reaction from someone who thrived on conflict and public attention. Within hours, Karen responded exactly as predicted. She posted on social media, boasting about her victory and implying that her actions at the traffic stop had forced the police to take action. Her followers engaged immediately, commenting and sharing, which only fueled her sense of power and entitlement. Karen's next move confirmed that the trap was working. She sent another fabricated report, this time claiming she had witnessed Officer Brooks committing vandalism at a nearby park. She added detailed descriptions, photos taken from unrelated locations, and timestamps, all designed to make the report appear credible. Detectives monitored her movements closely, tracking her as she headed to the park, phone in hand, ready to document the alleged crime. Every step she took was part of a narrative she had constructed, a story in which she was the hero exposing wrongdoing, while everyone else followed her lead. When Karen arrived at the park, the police were already in place, discreetly observing from a distance. She moved confidently through the area, speaking into her phone as though narrating live for her audience. Hidden cameras recorded every action, capturing her elaborate performance. She claimed to see evidence, pointed at imaginary damage, and made accusations, all while officers remained hidden, ensuring she believed she was in full control of the situation. The culmination of the sting came when detectives moved in to make contact. Karen was taken by surprise, the confidence in her steps faltering as she realized the scene was not what she thought. Officers approached cautiously, documenting every interaction to ensure a full record of her actions. She remained defiant, insisting she was assisting the investigation, refusing to acknowledge that the reports she had filed were false. The cameras captured her frustration, disbelief, and eventual recognition that she had been outmaneuvered. Karen was taken into custody at the scene without incident. Her phone, full of falsified reports, screenshots, and social media posts, was confiscated as evidence. The footage from the hidden cameras provided clear proof of her deliberate harassment and fabrication of crimes. The operation had succeeded in capturing her manipulation in real time, demonstrating not only the extent of her actions, but also her obsession with controlling narratives and undermining authority. By the time she was booked, Karen Mullins' sense of invincibility had been shattered. The sting had exposed the full scope of her behavior, leaving her facing multiple charges and a public reckoning she had never anticipated. The careful planning and strategic patience of the department had turned what began as a routine traffic stop into a controlled operation that documented her escalating obsession and manipulation. The town of Maple Grove, once quiet and ordinary, had witnessed the unraveling of a calculated scheme that demonstrated just how far entitlement could push someone willing to exploit the system for personal gain. News of Karen Mullins' arrest spread quickly, first through local channels and then nationally as clips of her traffic stop antics and social media posts went viral. Headlines emphasized the dramatic irony of a woman who believed she could control the police being outsmarted and arrested by the very system she had tried to manipulate. People across Maple Grove and beyond watched the story unfold online, sharing videos of her elaborate rants and live streams with incredulity and fascination. Karen had become a cautionary tale, a symbol of how entitlement, when unchecked, could escalate into harassment and criminal activity. Officer Dana Brooks returned to duty quietly, keeping her head down as the attention swirled around her. She had become a central figure in a story that could have overshadowed her entire career, but her professionalism had kept her calm through months of scrutiny. Though the traffic stop that had started it all had seemed insignificant, it had led to weeks of targeted harassment, false reports, and threats. Dana's patience, careful documentation, and cooperation with detectives had been crucial in building the case that finally brought Karen to justice. Karen faced multiple charges, including filing false police reports, harassment, and obstruction of justice. The evidence was overwhelming. Recordings, hidden camera footage, falsified documents, and her own social media admissions left little room for doubt. Her court appearances drew attention from media outlets, curious neighbors, and legal analysts who dissected each action and strategy she had employed. Despite her attempts to maintain composure in the courtroom, the weight of her actions became apparent as prosecutors presented the meticulously gathered evidence. During the legal proceedings, more details about Karen's behavior emerged. Investigators had found folders on her devices containing information about local officials, neighbors, and coworkers, with notes and plans that revealed her obsession with control and influence. The folders demonstrated a level of premeditation that went beyond the traffic stop, showing a pattern of manipulation that could have escalated if left unchecked. Her actions were not impulsive or random. They were methodical, calculated, and sustained over weeks, highlighting the danger of unchecked entitlement, paired with a willingness to fabricate events for personal gain. Ultimately, Karen accepted a plea deal that included community service, mandatory counseling, and restrictions on her ability to file future complaints without verification. Though she avoided the harshest potential sentences, her reputation suffered irreparably. The public had seen her manipulations unfold in real time, and her attempts to control the narrative had backfired spectacularly. In Maple Grove, the story served as a lesson in accountability, illustrating that actions, even those framed as self-righteous or justified, carry consequences. Months later, the town returned to its quiet rhythm, though the memory of the incident lingered. Officer Brooks continued her duties, quietly respected for her calm handling of a situation that could have easily spiraled out of control. Karen Mullins' story became a permanent reminder of how ordinary events could escalate when ego, entitlement, and obsession intersected with the legal system. The traffic stop that had seemed minor on a Saturday morning had transformed into a dramatic sequence of events that exposed manipulation, tested patience, and ultimately reinforced the limits of law, authority, and personal power. Maple Grove had survived the ordeal, but the story of Karen Mullins endured, a lasting example of how one person's sense of invincibility can collide with reality in ways both public and unforgettable.